in Aberdeen, and now she's a postdoctoral researcher there. And she is coming for, I think, for weeks. She will be here with us in the project of OWFs, which is a bilateral project between the CNR ISMAR and the University of Aberdeen. And well, she will be presenting something about what she's doing in her postdoc, right?
Yeah.
And well, so I will leave you with that.
Thank you. Yes, so I came here within this bilateral collaboration that we applied with Christian and also my other people that work in Aberdeen with me, and we work all together. So I am part of two main projects, which are these two here, so Supergen and Pelagio. Pelagio is funded by the UK government. It's within an umbrella of other projects. It's called EcoWinds, and they are all projects aiming to investigate the environmental impact of offshore wind farms. And Supergen is a consortium of mainly engineering departments in the whole UK, and me as a postdoc with Professor Beth Scott work more on the environmental impacts of offshore renewables in general. But I'm going to talk about that later. So I work both in the University of Aberdeen and in the Marine Directorate of the Scottish Government. And yes? Hello? I see? Okay. I am part of a big group, but I'm just presenting for other people. So my supervisor, Beth Scott, she applied for Pelagio, and she's leading Pelagio project. And then my colleague Morgan, she does more environmental impact assessment, like cumulative impact assessment, and she uses oceanographic output to model like top predators distribution, but also the potential disturbance of offshore wind farms on seabirds. And then Rory and William are physical oceanographers at the Marine Directorate, and they developed the model, they used the model, taught me how to use the model, and with them we included offshore wind farms. We try to include offshore wind farms effects into these oceanographic models. I wanted to give a brief description of the North Sea. I didn't manage to plot the tidal range, so I'm just copied a picture. But basically, the tide is the main variable that is driving the ecosystem in the North Sea, but is also one of those variables that is affected, potentially affected by structure in the water, like built structure in the water column. As you can see, around the UK, there are very strong tidal, very strong tidal excursions. We have two amphidronic points here. And the UK has a long history also in developing tidal turbines, but the structures are not yet fully commissioned. So basically in the last 5 years, the UK government decided to put a lot of money into offshore wind farms, and that's why there are a lot of funding now on this, at least in the UK. But just to say that, yeah, the tidal currents are very strong, and I also discovered in Ombres that Venice has strong tidal currents compared to that, it has a tidal range that is quite strong compared to other locations in the Mediterranean Sea. So what we are going to do in Ombres is try to compare this to regions, because our study region is here up north, and with Christian and Alejandro and Ali, we are going to also model potentially the Adriatic Sea. Just to give you an idea, the North Sea is a very heterogeneous environment. This is like a map modified from another paper, but the different colors represent different hydrodynamic regimes. And these regimes kind of classify how stratification develops over time. And certification is another variable that we investigate a lot that could potentially be impacted by offshore wind farms. For example, the green areas are seasonally stratified areas, and we have primary production mainly at the subsurface, while primary production blooms a lot along the coastline. And these regions are very tidally influenced. So we have a lot of mixing and water is just washed away 4 times per day. And the North Sea is also quite crowded because there are different countries that are facing the sea. So this is the EE zone, like exclusive economic zones, and the UK has a very big portion. And the aim of the UK is in fact deploying 70 gigawatts of offshore wind farms. And if you think about it, just this small farm, which is not that small, but it's Seagreen, that has been already deployed, is 1.4 gigawatt. So they want to develop by 2050, I think, 70 gigawatt in the whole UK waters.
Yeah. This is just for offshore wind farm.
Yes,
Not
offshore. No, yeah. So the tidal turbines are only, how do you call them, when they are not, yes.
Then another thing, maybe I think here correct, you mentioned kilowatt, 70 kilowatt.
Gigawatt.
Okay.
Sorry, gigawatt. Yeah. No, yeah. The different turbines that are commerciable now are mainly three types of foundation. So monopiles, which are those that have been already commissioned, which are mainly the yellow ones, and you can find them in the southern North Sea, and also like in the area, yes, because it's shallower. So they are smaller and shallower. Then we have the jacket foundation, and they are deployed in deeper water and then floating. And this is just an example because there are very different, many arrays and still under development. This is an image from the REL. That is, I put it because you can see that the different turbines are deployed in different seabeds, but because you have different bathymetry, then you have also different levels of certification. That's what I want to say. And when you put a turbine in mixed waters, you have a certain type of effect. So you are just going to increase the mixing or reducing the mixing, depending on what effect we are looking at. But when we put it in stratified waters, again, are we increasing the mixing at the phytocline or decreasing the mixing at the surface? But this is going to affect differently phytoplankton depending on the structure, depending on the region. So it's quite of a complex system. And we cannot really generalize. But it's going to be even more crowded because they are thinking on like put more and more wind farms. But these yellow are just like development zone. And our model focused on this area here. So we call it like the Firth and Thai region. And we focus on modeling mainly this area with 14 wind farms inside within Pelagic, but I'm going to talk about it later. I just wanted to summarize the potential impacts of offshore wind farms on the ecosystem. And I thought to divide it into groups, direct effects and indirect effects. This is because most of the funding were given to groups that were investigating direct effect, like in the last 15 or 10 years. Most of the studies were looking at collision impacts of seabirds and marine mammals, or they were looking at acoustic noise, or artificial reef effect, for example. There is a group in Belgium, they have like 15 years of time series of data collected near monopiles. But the indirect effects are more recent, and now we see like funding coming out like to investigate more this type of effects. But we know that we are changing hydrodynamics, and so we are potentially changing phytoplankton production. But also, for example, there are very few studies on the electromagnetic field. I think there are no studies, only models. So, I mean, there are models, but not observations. And there are not many other studies on pollution, for example. They are obviously all connected. In Pelagio, which is the project that I'm partially in, we focused mainly on modeling so we took data on the hydrodynamic and phytoplankton production, but then we also modeled a lot these effects. We tried to model these effects, and then we looked at what could be the potential consequences on fish and seabirds behaviors. So we couldn't cover everything, but there is space for everyone to study the impacts of offshore wind farms, because they are gonna cover a lot of subjects. This is what I want to say. So in this presentation, I'm gonna talk mainly about the hydrodynamic effects and the wind wake effect, the consequences on phytoplankton, and I'm gonna also mention the studies that have been done on the artificial reef effect. So this is a paper from the Belgian group. They are, again, they have like 15 years of data, maybe like 10 to 15. They are very long time series on the recolonization of the monopiles. And what they have seen is that this recolonization starts to kick around, I think, 3-4 years or 5. I don't remember very well, but the point is that after many years, they saw an increase of biodiversity near the monopiles. Not only of species that can grow on top of the structures, but also fish and benthos, species in the sediments. And also there are some cases where seals, they just come and catch fish near the monopiles. I think there are no papers describing this specifically for farms, but there are platforms of oil and gas. They tagged this seal, and the seal just like swim around the platforms of oil and gas. So we like, there is an increase of biodiversity. There are some studies that also show how the ecosystem that is new and is created around the farms is actually stable, but obviously for this they need more years of data. And to say that all the species that they found are endemic, so I don't think they found exotic species yet. Another effect, another type of change are related to hydrodynamics. So this is a study again in Belgium. They ran this glider, I think it's a glider, and they flew this glider downstream a monopile. So this dot is a monopile. And we have tidal currents downstream. So it's like hitting the monopiles, and then it's going in the direction of perpendicular to the gliders. And they saw that exactly on the shade of the monopile, there is a decrease of stratification. So mixing is increasing. And this is because like the monopiles is an obstacle and is creating this mixing downstream. This increase of mixing also creates these shades of sediments, which are called sediment wakes. Have been described, like the papers describing these are quite recent. They used satellite observations to describe these, and also tried to collect some data near the monopiles to calibrate the observations. But again, what is the impact on the community? We don't really know. Another fact is it's called the wind wake. The wind wake is in the atmosphere, and this is the shade, this is a SAR image, and it shows where the wind is reduced. So basically downstream the farm, we have a decrease of wind speed, and it's shown here by darker colors. And these wakes can go very far away. They can reach land. They can be up to 70 kilometers. There is some literature on this because obviously, like industries, they want to know if the farms are competing and if the farms some farm is taking the energy of someone else, some other company. So there is a bit more literature on this, but again, it's very hard to collect data near the farm. Okay, here I just reported one of the studies. This is a modeled study and is describing the potential effect of the wind waves. So we have here, all these arrows are, I think are turbines. No, sorry, no, they are not turbines. Only we have just one turbine here. And we hypothetically decrease the wind speed at this location here. And like to summarize, this decrease of wind speed is causing a dipole. So we have the convergence of water on the opposite side of the Ekman transport, and then we have the divergence of water on the other side. So just to say that we can see that the wind wave creates these two poles, where one we have convergence, the other one divergence, and this is affecting, for example, the mixed layer depth, is affecting stratification, and it could affect also phytoplankton. This was an idealized model study, but it was one of the first one. And it's about 10 years ago as well. Okay, so how do we represent all these potential effects in our models? We selected only two effects. One is the turbulence wake, so again, coming from the turbine foundation. One is the wind wave coming from the atmosphere. Our model is like a hydrodynamic model, so we only use atmospheric forcing. We don't use, we didn't couple the two models. So the wind wave is just transformation of the atmospheric forcing, while the foundation, so the turbulence wake, it's more like a parameterization within the model. To summarize again, just because maybe I hadn't been clear, just hypothetically, we have a stratified profile of the water column. This is density. We have the tidal current. That's why I talked about tides. Downstream, we have increase of mixing. This is what has been seen in the southern North Sea, where the water is like 25 meters deep. And then we have potentially an increasing of stratification, so decrease of mixing at the sea surface, because downstream the turbine, the wind is slower. This is affecting primary production. We tried to collect data within Pelagio, but we couldn't go close enough. So we reached 500 meters from the turbine, the foundation. Actually just with the CTD, but there were gliders farther away, and it's very difficult because like these changes are very subtle and minimal potentially. So it's very difficult to understand if that change, like if you don't have a control. There is also a very large internal variability. So what we have done is using models to do this. This is a map just of the chlorophyll to show that the North Sea is productive. The production, primary production, in this case chlorophyll, is quite patchy. It's very variable. This is just a screenshot, but a screenshot in May, but if you take it in June, then you will just see chlorophyll along the coastline, because most of and from satellite, because a lot of chlorophyll is at the subsurface and it's not really picked by satellites. We have seen also that. So our case study is here in the Firth of Forth. I'm going to show some of the results that we published. This was our first domain. We included only 3 wind farms, and in this case, we only modeled the wind wake. So again, the wind wakes are changes in the wind speed within the atmospheric forcing. So it's quite brutal and also simplified version. And because in literature, the wind wake is described to be strongest, sorry, the wind reduction is described to be strongest at the center of the wake, and it recovers at the edges, and it recovers farther away from the farm. This is a fixed length, so we had only a certain length of the wake, but depending on the atmospheric conditions, the wake can be longer or can be shorter, because the turbulence recover faster, and we can have quite shorter wakes. So this is a limitation of this way, but also tells that there are a lot of space, like we can improve it. This has been also published by Christensen. Yes.
The decrease is maximum 10%.
Yes. So the decrease is maximum 10% in the farm. It's my mouse. In the farm and at the center. But if two wakes overlaps, because sometimes you have like two wakes overlapping, because the direction is taken from the center, it's just one direction, which is also an approximation. It's not real. They are summed up. And this is also another assumption that we are taking, because it's not, they don't really sum up.
Another question. A single propeller or what's the percentage of energy that is extracted from the impact? What is the front and what is back?
So it is stronger in terms of percentage. It is higher than 10% at the hub height, but it's just localized at the turbine. So it's a very high resolution. We saw that running other models that are higher resolution. So it can go up to 20%. But again, this is models, because companies don't give data. Yeah.
That is the order of money.
Yeah. Sorry, yes. I think it was up to 20% sometimes, yeah. But we use 10%, but then with Diego, that I'll show you at the end of the presentation, actually, we saw that 10% was too strong. So we decreased it to 6%. So potentially we are overestimating the reduction of wind speed. Again, a lot to discover, a lot of research to do on this. These are some of the results from our models. So we used FVCOM coupled to ERSEM, which is a biogeochemical model developed in Plymouth. And this is just showing the amount of chlorophyll in the whole area, so in the whole region. And it's showing before the spring bloom, during the bloom, and post and after. And as you can see, the two lines, which are modeled without farm blue and modeled with the wind farm in red, they are quite similar. It looks like this decrease of wind, at least coming from 3 farms. It's not very big if we sum up the whole region over time. But most of the differences were at the spatial scale. So again, before the bloom, we had a big reduction. We don't know if it's significant or not, but big reduction among these farms and in quite more offshore waters. But after the bloom, we had again these two dipoles. So near the coastline, we saw an increase of primary production. Offshore, a decrease of primary production. So we tried to understand why chlorophyll was increasing and decreasing in some locations. We tried to look at specific, more into details. And what we've done is taken a transect that is crossing one of the farm, and we took 12 hours of persistent wind. And in this transect here, I'm just showing chlorophyll. We see that within the farm, we have an increase in chlorophyll, and downstream, we have a decrease. But the most interesting thing here for me was that because of the wind speed reduction, we saw an increase of stratification. So like basically you see like the upper region of the water column was less mixed because there was less friction at the sea surface. This caused an increase in stratification, and because this region was already quite stratified, what happens is that the nutrients remains at the like at the bottom, like in the bottom layer of the water column. Nutrients remain there, and there is not enough energy to uptake the nutrients into the surface. And phytoplankton basically lives here, it reproduces here, where there are both nutrients and light. And where we saw most of the reduction is also potentially because of the wind wake. So now I'm moving to Pelagio, which is part of the postdoc that I'm doing. We extended the domain to include more farms. And we ran the model for 10 years and included more farms, exactly. And we also included the effect of the in-water structure. The effect of the foundation, so the in-water structure, is parameterized within the drag force. This is the work done by Michela. Christian, I think you met her at the conference, and Rory and William that you both met when you came. And it's the same approach that they used for another paper. But she's also like producing the paper, and I think the code is already available on GitHub. They told me so. More details from them. I'm not an expert, but this is again the resolution of the model is 500 to 1 kilometer. So they needed to run different simulations with different resolutions in order to find the best coefficient. And they tried to calibrate also this parameterization using observations and in situ data. Again, we have a higher resolution near near one of the farm, because then we did more simulations here, and this was the work done by William McDonald. But this map is also showing how heterogeneous this area is in terms of stratified conditions over time. Some of the farms are going to be in very stratified waters, and the hypothesis is that these farms will create a different effect on phytoplankton or like the ecosystem compared to the farms that are closer to the coastline. But we are running the models now because like it takes quite a while, at least FVCOM, also ERSEM. These are just examples of these 10 years that I'm showing how variable it is. This is the difference between sea surface temperature and bottom temperature, which is a proxy kind of stratification. And this is an average from April to May. And it's just to show how stratified was, for example, in 2008, 2011, and 14, and like other years at the same time, they were very little stratified. So there is a lot of interannual variability. And the question is, are these changes larger or smaller than the interannual variability and also of the climate change effect on top of everything, all of this? This is the same just for chlorophyll. It's a bit more comparable, but again, some years are more productive earlier than others. So the aim is taking like just some years and compare what could be the effect. This is just baseline, so it's not including any wind farm yet because we are running the models now. And within ERSEM, we have these 4 functional groups. Diatoms are an isolated group, but then we have also 3 groups based on the size of phytoplankton cells. And they can tell you, they respond to the stratification and nutrients availability in the water column. So these 2 locations here are in quite mixed regions. And you can tell like the blooms of the groups are quite similar. But this region 3 here is more stratified, and in fact, we saw a bloom of phytoplankton. So what we want to investigate is also to see if once we include the wind farm, are we having shift in the phenology of these groups? Are they shifting? Are they stable? Because what we have done was just looking at the effects on a quantitative approach, like looking at more like how much is changing chlorophyll. But then there are so many other questions like qualitative questions. Are we, do we have the same amount of chlorophyll, but like the species are less edible? Like some species are not very edible, some are toxic. So what are the consequences on the trophic chain? Just to say that we aim to validate the models using the Stonehaven time series, which is like 30 years of data. Yes, so I'm moving to SuperGen just very quickly. I have a few slides, maybe I should have put them earlier. But SuperGen, again, it's this consortium of many people. I work mainly with Team Starler and Diego from Manchester, and we look at the wind waves. So as you've seen before, we just put a polygon on the farm. These are all turbines. But what we do is like taking a polygon, saying the deficit here is this much, and then we run the Gaussian approach on the wake. What he has done is running by wake to get deficits, and then we adapted this deficit to our mesh by interpolating the outcome of a very high resolution model. Again, PyWake is an engineer-based model. It doesn't have any variable coming from, it's not an atmospheric model. And what we are doing is trying to see if the FVCOM responds differently to different atmospheric forcing. Okay, so summarizing, I think the key points are that we need both modeling and observational studies because we saw that offshore wind farms are changing the hydrodynamic and they are potentially changing phytoplankton production near the wind farms. But we need both, especially because the modeling studies needs calibrations and validations, and we struggle to parameterize all these turbines if we don't have data collected. And it's a problem because we struggle to collect, like, not we, but like people working on this struggle to collect data near the farms. At least near early stage farms, because in the Netherlands and in Belgium, they have data. And they can, the government for like set the rules to collect data near the turbines. What I'm interested in is investigating more the phytoplankton dynamics, collecting potentially data using maybe eDNA at some point or like other more lab-based work, and investigating the ecosystem functioning, and also see what are the potential effects of these changes on the higher trophic levels. But this is more like a collaboration I have with other people within Pelagio. Yeah, thanks.
Question, please.
Yes.
So you mentioned the possibility that these kind of structures where I think that when they are more than one, of course, the reason of my question will be how many of these structures are needed to produce a kind of a response to the ecosystem like the one we described. And the second point is that you mentioned the possibility that the ecosystem will switch from, say, an herbivorous dominated, for example, phytoplankton, towards a multivorous or microbic dominated food chain. Do you solve this kind of response to the ecosystem? How many structures are needed to induce that kind of response?
So this is a good question. I don't have an answer. Maybe when we are going to run the 10 years with 14 farms, I will have a better answer because our runs were only for months with 3 farms because it's taking a lot of power. But it's a question that is quite.
Because the point is that I presume that the North Sea is a phytoplankton dominated ecosystem, no?
Mhm.
You are introducing the structures and you are changing also the kind of ecosystem because you mentioned that you call other species not already present, for example. So is there the possibility that somewhere around the UK coast, the ecosystem completely changes from phytoplankton dominated to a benthos dominated ecosystem?
So would you say that it wasn't benthos dominated before?
Well, could be.
Because I think there are some historical studies saying that it was productive. It was actually very productive, the North Sea. So in the southern North Sea, here there were oysters. Like here there were a lot of oyster grounds. That's why they eat a lot of oysters in Belgium. But now all these grounds are isolated, and also they need to be connected to keep growing. So potentially the wind farms are helping these grounds. Maybe we don't know if they don't put these wind farms exactly on the grounds, because there is also these problems of overlapping, and the government is pushing for that sometimes. I don't know in Belgium and the Netherlands, but I don't think so. I think it could help. It could help to. It's also supporting phytoplankton is great. So are you talking about eutrophication?
I don't know exactly.
I'm also, maybe I don't know enough.
Different level, because I presume, for example, North Sea is, they want to go to a fish dominated exploitation of the area. No.
Yeah.
Maybe the Norwegian have the same problem.
With the fisheries.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's everywhere, even in Spain. I heard there is this problem now. For example, no, I can't say this. No, but I will say later. But anyway, some wind farms are located trying to take into account fishery, the fishermen, but sometimes they're not really taken into consideration.
So all my question is try to understand how many structures like this are necessary to reorient at least a part, a relevant part of the cost of the area.
Yeah.
So one, nothing, not nothing.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe 1,000.
Exactly.
No, she has.
No, it's true.
The evaluation.
But yeah. No, thanks. It's a good point.
Oh, it's a issue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have several questions. It is an interesting presentation with a number. Really, it is impressive. It is really a complex study since you are approaching different aspects so quickly. Just a clarification on the validation process of your model, because you mentioned both of the SAR data, but I don't think you used that for validation, right?
You talk about the wind wake?
There are both aspects, those connected with the hydrodynamics and the one on the biogeochemistry. So for the first one, what kind of data did you use to validate it, or if you are planning to? And chlorophyll A, why are you using a long-time sequence instead of the chlorophyll A products the surface?
Yeah. So the baseline model with our wind farm is validated using CTD profiles that are collected by the Marine Directorate. They every I think it's 3 times per year they go outside and they collect data.
Enough to the system to be able to reproduce that kind of change. So the hydrodynamic, I'm sure that you're able to reproduce with the model. But the simulation that I performed with the 3 wind farms, the only information that represents the change that you showed are the SAR ones. So the wind wake is basically, it's like we select the mesh that has potentially a deficit,
and then we decrease the wind speed in that locations by a certain amount. That is imposed, and it comes from literature. So all those values comes from literature. So there are like SAR data, observations, people that have been working on.
But there is not a
No.
validation.
No, sorry, no,
Okay.
no. We tried. So there is a Julianne Wiscott, a Plymouth, that she does something like that. If you want to.
Yeah, because to some extent it was, I was impressed by the extent of the reduction connected with the wind wake, because compared to the reduction of the flow due to the turbulence wake, that is much limited and closer to the volumes of the other one is really large, and there should be something that demonstrates that that is true.
Yeah.
That second question, I have 3 or 4. You mentioned the parameterization for the turbulence wake. If it is connected with the drug, this means that there is, let's say, the titles are treated like kind of islands, right? So they are not considered like sources of sink of energy in the system. Or are they?
They are. So the approach is momentum sink.
So because it is changing in the turbulence closure scheme due to the
But I didn't work on that, so.
But anything is important. What is the assumption, particularly for the vertical column? And the third one is the lateral sources. So since you have the Firth to Forth, then there is the source of pressure, and that is changing the dynamics. The thermal one, but as well the loads of nutrients. I can imagine that for the biogeochemical modeling, that has a weight on the output. In your simulation, are you reproducing that source, and how much the land sea source is affecting something that is offshore as the areas of the funds?
So we included rivers, output, inflow, runoff,
of
discharge, and nutrients. No, but some nutrients comes from time series, some others come from biogeochemical, so from Copernicus models, and we basically took an average. We kept, I don't remember actually. I think we kept it stable every year. It's an average, a yearly average.
So it is far enough not to affect the daily change.
Yeah. Something to look at. Yeah. Yeah. I'll check. But no, because anyway, we validated chlorophyll. We looked at like what's the correlation with casts, in situ casts, and it's around 0.3, 0.4 of like correlation, which is I learned is okay, but it's sometimes it can be worse. Yeah, ERSEM has been taken with some precautions. Yeah. They're very angry. No, but I remember my first, when I was a PhD, I went to a conference in Scotland, and I gave a talk on the small things I was doing, and a fisherman came with his card telling me to come to talk to them, or like to talk with them, like a fisherman association. So they are very upset because they are not included in the decisional process. But there is an association that is trying to mediate between fishermen and the government. And also
the problem is the fact that once we have a wind farm, and they cannot go in the middle, or because the fish.
I think there is a study, a recent study that described an increase of fish near the farms. So potentially fish can hide inside the farm, but fishermen are not, what I understood, are not legally protected. the insurance is not covering them if they go there and potentially have some troubles. They get stuck with the gears. I'm not an expert, but I understood there are problems with the insurance, so it's all new, like new rules, new regulations. So I know in France they go. I know that in France there are some prototypes, and they go to fish near the farms because there are few floating turbines. But I don't know if they go in the North Sea. Maybe in the southern there are more data.
On a different scale, it's the same problem with our town.
With what?
There is more, a small oceanographic tower.
I see. Okay. But that knowledge is very transferable, I think, on this type of set.
You know, which is the mechanism responsible for this convergence divergence of the water surface close to down to the wind farm.
The dipoles.
Yes, yes, exactly. Is that the pressure in the wind, the atmosphere of the wind?
Sorry, this is.
Yes, exactly. That one. What is the responsibility?
So what I understood is that here, basically, the black arrows are the wind field, and the green is the Ekman transport.
Okay.
What's the name? Anyway. So where the wind is reduced, Ekman is also smaller. So yeah, you have an kind of sorry, it's the wind. Yeah.
It's not the pressure that is sat in the water.
No, because the only variable that is changed is wind speed. Again, yeah. So once you couple oceanographic and atmospheric models, then obviously, yeah. And also another thing is that this recent paper, a paper from DTU, Denmark, they showed that some areas are characterized by an increase of wind speed. So there is not only decrease, but you have also regions where the turbulence is like, better, but it's like increasing. So you have actually a speed increase at the sea surface. And again, another point is that this is at the hub height. No, sorry, this is a SAR image, so it's at the sea surface. But it's different what is happening at 100 meters and what is happening near the sea surface. So maybe you have a wind reduction at 100 meters, but at the sea surface you have an increase of turbulence. So the effect could be the opposite. Who knows? Yeah, we need more data.
Just supposed to mention data, you mentioned also before that there is a mean of data and lack of data. As far as I remember you told me that it's not allowed to go and make measurements within the wind farm, and the company that are managing the wind farm does not share the data. So I mean, there are so many structures outside in the sea, and I do remember it was when I was in Aberdeen, I attended an event, and there were also promoting also wave measurement put on the piles to observe waves and whatever. So they have a lot of things, but they don't share the data.
You saw them.
Yeah, that's the government that allow them, but it's not imposing them to share.
In the time the Gulf of Mexico, the US, the rule was that a company that went data for the appreciation of fish, and within 2 years they had to release the data to
Okay. In where?
US.
US. Okay.
Gulf of Mexico, that one. Hurricane,
But so also my point of view is from the UK and Scotland, but I know in the southern North Sea it can be different, because I know they actually collect data near the farms. There are like governmental bodies who have to assess every year the potential impacts. So they collect data, maybe they have more data, but not from the industries. But I may be wrong. I'm actually not aware of the southern, like other countries. Anyway,
Arianna will be here until 23 of September, so if you have any questions, you will be in the other text. So thank you.
thank you.